Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
All right. You could unscrew it and just do it the old-fashioned way. Hello. Good morning. It's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday, and Jared Day is joining us. Jared Day, the compiler? I don't know what the correct noun is. The
editor and moderator.
Oh. Well, you'll have to tell me that every time because
okay.
I'm not going to keep that in my head. The editor and moderator of Daylee News Nuggets. And he's also with the Forum for Economic Development, right?
Yes.
I got that.
Research and Programs Director.
Okay, gotcha. Gosh, I am so disorganized today. And we were desperately trying to get into the hand sanitizer, which isn't pumping, right?
Yeah, no, it might be frozen. I don't know.
We're a little concerned because poor Jess is here, and she shouldn't be. She should be in bed. But such is the reality of being a worker in America, that your presence is almost mandated, be you ill or not, contagious or not. You will not be hearing Jess's high-pitched giggle today in the background. First of all, she doesn't feel like laughing. And second of all, I don't know, she just doesn't sound like herself.
She might be too busy coughing.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just a little freaked over here, so we were trying to slobber hand sanitizer all over ourselves, just in case.
Yeah. We'll get this thing working yet.
We will. But to the news and the news of the day. I want to, before because Jared, you go national and international, don't do a lot on Daylee News Nuggets local, but you do on occasion.
Well, on the Forum for Economic Development, I'm a moderator on the blog for them as well.
Oh, so
that we've actually been covering that story quite a bit.
The story being the August Wilson Center, and if you saw the headline in the Post-Gazette today, which of course I don't have with me, it just it was like a sock in the gut to see. And do you remember exactly what it said? But it said,
no, I missed the headline.
The person in charge of trying possibly to save the center has said, "There's no way."
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Sell it. They're going to have to go. There is no way to fix this. The debt is too huge. She went to all of the foundations, all those biggie foundations, and not one of them would give her a red cent. Apparently, RAD, Regional Asset District, said that they'd chip in like $150,000 or something if one of the other foundations if the foundation would match. No one would match. And at this point, they see no way that building can be saved.
As the August Wilson Center.
As the August Wilson Center. I mean, the building is extraordinarily beautiful facility. And this is the saddest damn thing. I'm angry. I'm just not sure who to be angry with. I think I'm angry at the board of directors because ultimately a board of directors of an organization like that is responsible.
Yeah.
and they're responsible for hiring the right people and then for making sure that the people they put in place are doing their job.
Yes.
So to let it get to the point where it is absolutely unsalvageable seems to bespeak a board that was asleep at the switch.
To an extent, that is my sense. Now, there are some other important things that one needs to keep in mind with a couple of things. This is just what I hear in the nonprofit world.
No.
You kind of hear things.
Scuttlebutt.
Yeah, and the one thing is that I guess you would say, in general, whenever you're talking about African American cultural institutions, there's a lot less traditional foundation base underneath those cultural institutions almost everywhere that you can look where they emerge. There's just not the same degree of support at the front end. Like when this whole thing started to get created, they began assembling I mean, all
those foundations that just refused to give more did.
Exactly.
I thought generously.
But here's the thing. It's like you need to have a big enough endowment to get you through the hard times. And this is the second piece to it, that the recession just hit the August Wilson Center much harder than a lot of other places in terms of the people who were giving the money, the kinds of people that could have had events there, and all of that kind of background support that is often there for those, it's been missing. And then when trouble really comes, like it has in the last several years with the August Wilson Center, you're tapped out. And that's what we see here, is that everybody who could have been the safety net has already been the safety net, and so there's just nothing left.
Well, let me go back to the first statement you made, though, that when it comes to African American cultural institutions, they don't get the kind of support that I guess
They don't have the floor.
Others would. So does that bespeak racism, or does that bespeak something else? I mean,
it's one of these other sort of unpleasant things that a lot of people don't like to talk about, which is kind of historical discrimination. It's like that you don't have the base of super wealthy African Americans out there
because they haven't had the opportunity to build the kind of wealth that white folks have.
And it's happening slowly.
Yes.
And it's like Pittsburgh. You might be able to create something like Chicago. You might.
Am I not correct in saying that Pittsburgh's African American community is the poorest African American community, I believe, by virtue of per capita income of all major American cities?
It's down there. I don't know. I haven't seen the latest numbers.
It's either us or Milwaukee.
But in terms of these kinds of cultural institutions, it's often that layer at the top that is the bigger teller of the tale than the groups at the bottom. It's like, do you have enough of a black middle class and a black upper class? And do they have the kind of relationships with? Is there a kind of progressive, liberal, white, moneyed establishment that is going to say, we'll partner with you?
Well, there's some, but I guess not enough.
Not enough. Clearly there has not been enough. And I think but there again, I'd say in the context of this recession, that it just pulled so much out of the August. That's what I've heard anyway. I'm sure there's more, and we'll hear more as this whole thing unfolds.
Well, it sure sounds the story in the PG makes it look like a pretty done deal that There's a lot of people who want to save it. They see no pathway to do it.
That's it. Yep. Yeah, it's tragic. Now, there may still end up being, they've some kind of August Wilson Center. It won't be that facility.
No, but I have to tell you, the New York Times did a pretty big story about this maybe a few weeks ago.
Yep. I caught
and
that one.
it made, the way they wrote it, it made Pittsburgh look bad. This is not going to look good for Pittsburgh.
No.
That there's somehow an inability of this supposedly happen in town to support such a thing.
Yeah.
Such an endeavor.
Now,
I mean, they're saying, look at how come Andy Warhol? Okay, so Andy Warhol, where did I read this great quote? Where somebody had said, there are just not enough black people here to, blah, 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 blah. And they said, well, do you have to be a Slovenian or Slovak or whatever Warhol is? I'm sorry, a Croatian? I don't know what he was exactly, something like that, a Serbo-Croat, this and that, to go to the Warhol? To support the Warhol? So the sense that it's about African-American culture. Do you have to, what? It's black people who are supposed to go?
No. And it's funny, too, this sort of ties in. I'm going to sort of backtrack a little bit on what I've already said, in the sense of saying that you have to build very carefully. And, of course, Tom Sokolowski would know more about how they built that than most people. You'll have to ask him the next time he's in here. How
they were able to do that as opposed to
exactly because
August Wilson.
It's like careful building, careful planning, cautious, being very cautious. And one of the things I didn't mention is that the thing I heard about the board on August Wilson is that they were over ambitious. So, I'm hoping that we can come up with something.
It sounds like there is no rabbit to pull out of a hat.
Not in terms really, of keeping that August Wilson Center in that building.
No, it's just flat out there's no money.
Yeah.
There's millions and millions and millions owed, and nobody's.
Did you see the electric bill that they pay every month?
What was it? It was something.
It was like tens of thousands of dollars every month that they need to pay just to keep the lights on.
And they don't even have enough.
No.
They have nothing.
No.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just wanted to get your sense on that.
Yeah. I have sympathy for the board and the other supporters, and then there's these caveats and other things that come into play. That it's like cautious.
Have you been here since Chris Christie's little
difficulty?
No,
his multiple difficulties now.
Well, won't they just keep adding up? Because I read this interesting piece by a guy who was a legislator in Missouri who got himself into some difficulty, and the feds came knocking at his door, and he ended up doing time.
Yeah, I think I posted.
Did you post that?
I posted that story.
Thank you. So, and he was saying, hey, it's not. Here's what's going to happen. It's when the feds got you in their sights. First of all, forget it. They can just follow their noses. It doesn't matter. Anywhere. They can start here and end up over there.
It took them 48 hours before the mayor of Hoboken, her thing, the feds took that one too. Okay,
they're jumping on absolutely. Well, you can see it happening here with the grand jury still nosing around with Ravenstall and this and that. You think, what the heck, Well, with Christie and that particular state and the way it obviously operates and he operates, it's hard to believe that they're not going to find something.
Yeah.
It might not be the bridge.
That's true. And here's the thing. I mean, they've already subpoenaed virtually everybody in his office. in his campaign staff.
Here's the other thing. Why would not one of these people he's thrown under the bus, in order to avoid prosecution themselves, turn and give them what they want? I can't believe it.
Apparently Wildstein is already in negotiations.
Is saying, what do you want to know? What do you want to know? I don't want to go to jail.
That's it. And I believe it was him who did some kind of. It was a public hearing where. And I think it was Rachel Maddow who deconstructed everything he said in such a way that it was, it's like, yep, that's not true. That's not true. No, that's a lie. That's not true. And so it's like when you've got somebody like that on that kind of a hook, they're going to sing. Yeah. The it
doesn't sound
good.
Like the woman's going to.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Because, it's like right now, if you're the federal prosecutor, you have it's like you have an abundance of riches in certain respects in terms of bargaining chits that you can go to these and they know they're on the clock too, because what they have to say is valuable only so long as one or two other people haven't already started to sing. Once the other people start to sing,
they don't need you anymore.
They don't need you anymore,
right.
And they're just going to hang you. It's like so yeah.
So there's a lot being made of. So you got McConnell in Virginia, the former governor there, being indicted, and that he and Christie were the two sort of moderate Republicans who were elected governors in states that Obama carried, and they were looked at as possibles. These are our dream guys. Here they are. One's indicted, and one's got the feds everywhere on him.
Yeah, I mean a lot of fairly knowledgeable people, or at least I should say, New Jersey watchers. A lot of New Jersey watchers are saying that he's done. Yeah, that's what they're saying, and we'll see. The stranger things have happened, but it's one of the odd features that I see to it is how the GOP establishment, they're so desperate to have somebody that remotely reflects their somewhat centrist, somewhat moderate point of view. And then,
how do you say the establishment still has a somewhat centrist, somewhat moderate point of view? Who are those Republicans?
They're inside the Beltway, and they meet amongst themselves. They make occasional guest appearances in the media.
But they don't have the power.
Well, they only have the power, and this was Christie's strategy, I believe, is that if there's one Chris Christie and 7 or 8 Tea Party people going into the GOP primaries,
well, then he wins.
That's exactly what Romney faced. And, it's like that. So now it's like, well, right now, if you were to really look coldly at the map, I mean, it's just like, it's hard to see who's.
Okay, let's bet right now. I'll tell you who's going to be the Republican.
Okay, who's it going to be?
Jeb Bush.
That's, I think so. And yet, I posted on my blog. I think
Bush v. Clinton.
I know.
What? You know what?
Yes.
That says something, doesn't it? There it is in a nutshell. Our political system is. It is.
Uh-huh.
I don't see anybody else that has a shot for them. Bush.
Well, if he chooses not to run,
he wants it.
I think so. But it's like now here's one of those things where it's like if you listen to so many of the Republican commentators and even a lot of the left wing and progressive people, they are so dismissive, and I think wrongly so, of a Jeb Bush run. And my comment is either he's not running or he's running a brilliant campaign already.
Right. Exactly.
It's like not saying a thing, It's and it's interesting too because I think I posted it yesterday on the blog. How it's like by this point you usually have some sense of what who's really in the game.
That's right.
And I don't hear anything coming out of the Bush world that has one way or the other. And I'm almost wondering, is anybody even looking to see what is actually happening in Bush world? That is anybody doing? What to what extent is he trying to cater support? What kind of? I mean, you got to start having people join your team, like pollsters and state-level primary activists and all those kinds of people. You need to start lining those people up. And what's happening?
Well, he certainly has access to an awful lot of those kinds of people, given the family business. I mean, if anyone could ramp something up pretty quickly, it would be a Bush, would it not?
Maybe, but the counter argument is that all of those people, they want to be with somebody who's going to has an outside chance. So it's like they're not. It's like when you and there's a real finite number of these people. It's like
who can win,
who have the experience and the the contacts and can be count onable to run a professional campaign. There's a certain, and it's like if you're going to a place like Iowa or New Hampshire or North Carolina or Nevada, those early primary states, you've got to have pros on the ground if you want to have any chance at all. And it's like, what are those people doing? You can't, are they all kind of in some secret cahoots about and not sworn to secrecy? I don't know.
I don't know either. The idea of Clinton Bush makes me sick.
Well, I think it's another element of the sort of the brilliance of a possible Bush campaign is that if he were going to run again, it would sort of nullify the Bush fatigue factor by the virtue of he'd be running against a Clinton who there's almost as much Clinton fatigue out there.
There's got to be more Bush. I mean, he's asking for us to elect a third member of the same family in the space of 3 decades or something, or 4? Yeah. I mean, come on.
I know. That would certainly be, and of course, to the extent that I've heard anything, it's that he's ambivalent.
Well, that speaks well of him too.
Why the hell would you want to run if you're Jeb Bush? I mean, the word, of course,
and even his mother said, "Don't do it." His mother said, "We don't need another Bush." His mother said.
Can you see the ads now?
Yeah, exactly.
Clinton, is like, even his mother says he shouldn't run.
We've got a call. Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
George here.
Okay. Hi, George.
Just got a quick question. I just tuned into you guys catch up here. Do you think that maybe what's happening out there is that the Republican Party is in disarray and the battle with the Tea Party is really that serious that it's disrupting their plans for national office?
I certainly think so, and I've been that's been the biggest topic that Lynn and I have talked about on our previous get-togethers, and that is the extent to which what you see looking at 2016 is a party that is in a disarray, and so much of it though is behind the scenes.
Right.
It's like there's a lot of people that you can look at individual stories, but where you really see the trouble, if you're in the Republican circles, is when you get down to the state levels and you see parties split in states like Iowa, where I think it was in Iowa that they had like half the committee of the state, half the Republican state committee resigned. They just said we can't.
Right.
We can't.
And look what's going on in Idaho too.
Yes, and in what is it?
It's one of the Republican office holders are being challenged by upstarts,
Yes.
well-funded, of course.
Maine.
And I
Okay,
think
and these are the right wingers going after the establishment in these.
Yes, absolutely, and I think that plays good for the Democrats to make hay with something like that.
In a national election, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I don't see that happening either. So it's like, here's a time when, the party is re-identifying itself in severe challenges from the hard right wing, and the Democrats are just sitting there kind of rolling their thumbs and rolling their eyes and not making hay of it. This is a serious party struggle.
Isn't sometimes it's just best when you see your, the other side, I don't want to say your enemy, when you see them sort of self-destructing, why bother, just sit and enjoy it?
That's the mistake. I think that's the mistake. That this is a notable change in the Republican Party, and you can't just sit by and use it as entertainment. It's a time for strategic moves. The only way that Obama is going to get anything through his next 3 years is to get a Democratic House, and that should be the focus, and not just being entertained by the scrap on the right. My opinion, anyway.
Sure, and I understand your sentiment about that. I would say that it is my sense of the Obama administration that their highest priority in 2013 and in 2014, this goes counter to what you may hear in some media circles, is that his highest priority has been to marginalize the Tea Party wing of the congressional Republicans. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so what you saw almost all last year is that in the battles with Boehner in the House, and you see the issue set that is emerging for this year, immigration reform. Nobody thinks immigration reform is going to pass, right. But it's an issue that goes square into the divisions that live within the House GOP.
Yeah. And I think that 2014 is going to be a very milestone year for the Republican Party.
I think it's their last chance to really have any meaningful repositioning occur that'll make any difference. Because after in 2014, when you look at 2016, a number of articles and other
are you just talking about demographics then?
Yeah, well, it's both the Electoral College. There's several really interesting stories out about the Electoral College. Looks increasingly daunting if you're a Republican. But then after 2016, the demographics begin to take over such that the states like Texas, Arizona, and Colorado,
Florida for sure.
That these states
can turn
will become purple and even blue. And if they don't have Texas, that's it.
They don't have anything. That's right. If they don't have Texas, they can't win.
Hey, I'll hang up and let others get in.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Good talking.
Thank you. Actually, you got to hang up because we got to take a break. We got to get a break in here. Okay. We'll do. When we come back, for some reason, Jarrett has got it in for former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, this indefatigable public servant.
Yes, doing his duty.
You really got a burr under your saddle? Is that the phrase?
That's the phrase.
Okay. And so we're going to let him vent a little bit. He just needs to. He wants to eviscerate the good Mr. Gates. Oh, you've got it. He wants to get out of here. Like he's like dosing himself with We'll be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win a Seven Springs overnight getaway, Alton Brown, or Brick Floyd tickets. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Packers. Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Very season 2. All right, that was quick. We are back. All right, go ahead. Now, I've been reading a lot of your stuff that you've put on Gates. It's all a result of his book.
Yes.
Which came out and was initially deemed to be extremely critical of President Obama and blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
And okay, so just go.
Well, right off the top, one of the issues that I had with what Gates had to say was the idea that somehow Obama was the criticism was that he wasn't zealous enough. He was ambivalent about the war. I believe it was in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And the thing that I found so sort of off-putting about Gates's assessment about that was that it's like, well, why should that have surprised him? I mean, Obama ran on the idea that he was going to get us out of both Iraq and out of Afghanistan. And getting in there, it's like, well, here we are. And yeah, we've gotten out of Iraq and we're getting out of Afghanistan. It's like, well, why should it surprise you? Moreover, and I think this was even the bigger point, is that historically, that presidents and Obama's a great student of history and the history of the presidency. The successful presidents have been the ones who are the most skeptical of military power and what it can accomplish and what it can't. This was an issue that came up on the blog, I think a week or so ago, where I talked about looking back at presidents who kind of accepted without much critical assessment.
Whatever the general said.
They would go in and say, "Okay, General, what do you think?" Or the Joint Chiefs of Staff or their military advisors, and they say, "Okay, yep, well, I'm going to pay attention to you, and I'm going to leave it to you." Those are the presidents whose military and foreign policy legacies are the most unsettled since FDR, because you look at Truman. Well, MacArthur, that he listened to MacArthur when he should have said no. Then you look at Kennedy and the Bay of Pigs. You look at LBJ in Vietnam. People slam LBJ for somehow meddling in the administration of Vietnam. It's like LBJ's biggest problem was that he was paying. Yet he was doing almost everything that the generals, like Westmoreland and his predecessors, told him to do. It showcased, for me, one of the funniest stories I remember about LBJ was, when he began trying to figure out how to get out of Vietnam, he had this theory. He had this program that he pitched to Ho Chi Minh about doing the equivalent of the Tennessee Valley Authority in the Mekong Delta. And he had such a United States New Deal kind of mentality, a Texas Paul kind of mentality.
Ho, how about this?
How about this? And his view is, there's no way Ho can turn this down. It's like, we're going to do the Tennessee Valley Authority, and it's going to be in the Mekong Delta. There's no way and of course, Ho turned him down. It's like,
what?
Ho turned him down, and it was just deeply missed. LBJ didn't get that he wasn't talking to George Meany. He was talking to Ho Chi Minh. But that's, it's like, so it's presidents, and you kind of, on the other side, you look at presidents who were deeply skeptical. And here, Eisenhower. I don't know if we've talked about him before.
No. Well, how is he skeptical of the military?
Well, the thing about it is,
warning about the isn't he the one who warned about the military
industrial complex? The thing that was so interesting about Eisenhower, and I've studied him a lot in the last several years. The thing that a lot of new studies out about him that really showcase his skepticism about what was possible to achieve with military power. And of course, nobody knew the military better than Ike. And it's like there was his Joint Chiefs of Staff, his National Security Advisors team. They could not roll him in for a second because he knew it better than they did what was going on.
Well, you can see though where a civilian president, such as an Obama, is considered. You can see they're in a. It would be a very uncomfortable place to be.
And that's one of the things that you'd have to say is I like about Obama is the fact that he's a complete civilian. And he came into...
And he's willing to say no to the
And he's willing to say, no, we're not doing that. You want... And this is one of the things that Lawrence Korb was talking about last week, is that the military people, they wanted a surge of 100,000 more American troops. And it's like Obama said, we're not doing that. and yet in the lights of Bob Gates, he's saying it's like, well... he didn't support the war enough. He wasn't waving the flag hard enough. I don't know what it's like. Of course he's not, and that's not his role.
Well, the book, my understanding, also shows Gates to be an extremely emotional man who he says he cried. Like every night he would spend time writing letters to the parents or the spouses of people who'd been killed, of soldiers who'd been killed, and that he carried names around, and he was just, this to me, that he was so aware of what waging war does to people that somehow it might have muddled his, does that, you would think that would make somebody very loath to send more into battle. But it also, it seems, can make them think, why did all these others die?
Yeah, the sunken costs issue.
Yeah, we've got to make sure they didn't die in
for
vain.
nothing. Yeah, and yet
and then they send more.
It's one of those sort of logical fallacies. The fallacy of sunken costs. That the sunken costs justify more costs, and it's just. Obama, he's not not.
So are
easily,
you so sure that it seems to me that this Gates, this softer side, I think he's a nicer guy than you think. I think the softer side of him is what makes him
more compelling?
I think.
Well, the thing that I find further fault with Gates is ultimately people need to stand on their record, and you have to kind of look at, okay, what has been your judgment over time? And so, like when you look at Bob Gates, as a very young person but still well placed in the national security establishment back in the Reagan years, this is somebody who consistently advised Reagan to not talk to Gorbachev. To not deal with him.
Really?
This was along with Paul Nitze and Donald Regan and the people who are more hardcore back in that time. Bob Gates was part of that group. And, it's like, not only were they wrong, they were dangerously wrong. In the sense, I don't know if you're familiar with the. Did we talk about this? We talked about this maybe off the air one time. The Able Archer exercise of 1982-83.
Remind me.
This was one of during Reagan's first term, his foreign policy towards the Soviet Union was to be very hard-nosed and aggressive and in their face. And one of the ways in which that manifested itself was constant air incursions into the Soviet Union to do kind of probing around and kind of hot dogging. If you remember the film Top Gun, it kind of looked a little bit like that, a little bit, kind of some aggressive.
Well, it sounds provocative, obviously.
It was.
Very
and
provocative.
The Soviet Union at that time was controlled by Yuri Andropov, one of the last of the old
school.
The old apparatchiks that was there. That he and his military people, they were freaking out about all these incursions. And so one of the byproducts of that was the shoot down of KAL 007 was that when that plane incurred into Soviet territory.
You remember it was a Korean
Airlines 007 got shot down. And of course, the Reagan people made great hay about that. But the backstory is that this was on the heels of 2 years worth of constant incursions.
Yeah.
Well, in I believe it was late '83, early '84, that the Reagan people, they were going to hold an enhanced version of the war games that we usually had with European allies. And their definition of enhanced was to make it even more realistic. Okay, you never heard about this?
No.
The Able Archer exercises.
No.
And that meant involving all the civilian and Margaret Thatcher and the Mitterrand, I think, was the president of France at the time, and Helmut Kohl and all these people. The civilian leadership, not just the military people, were involved in the exercise. And Andropov and his people, when this all began to come through their intelligence circles, they said, "This is it."
It looked like we were going to declare war. That we were going to come at them.
They believed that this was a sneak attack, and they came within a whisker of pushing the nuclear button.
What? What year?
80.
Well, how come we don't? Do you guys know this?
Yeah.
I mean, I know
the Able Archer exercises.
But
oh yeah, it's. I'm still waiting for the really good book to be written about it. But
what made them pull back?
It started. The intelligence stream began circling back to the Western Allies, and Reagan and his people they began making phone calls, and Thatcher began making phone calls to.
Saying, it's just an exercise. It's just an exercise. Don't kill us.
Don't push the button. And but the thing about that, there's a point to this story.
Oy.
The point to this story is that that Reagan was really freaked out about what happened there, and he decided that he was going to stop all the provocative stuff, and he was really frightened by how close they had come to just bumbling into a really tragic, just potentially catastrophic situation. And so he began phasing out Donald Regan, Paul Nitze, and Rumsfeld at the time. Those people began to get sidelined, such that by his second term, Schultz and Baker and other people,
cooler heads,
and Thatcher, who had been, once Andropov and Chernenko had passed from the scene, that Gorbachev was in there. They said, okay, we can, and we should talk to these. There again.
And you're saying Gates said, "Oh no, don't talk to Gorbachev."
Gates was part of that earlier group who was like hardline. No, we gotta stay in there. We gotta. And it's like, that is to me some of the key lessons that I don't think we hear in either this piece or in the assessments that people are making about the book.
Well, this Able Archer, is that what you're calling it?
Yep, the Able Archer military exercises.
Okay, how come, was that not covered in that wasn't, I mean, there was never like a headline in the paper saying.
No. It got hushed
Soviets
up on.
pulled back from.
It was under
nuclear
everybody's.
button.
Now, I mean, if you
So where was
you can look it up and you can Google the Able Archer exercises, and there's more and more stuff coming out about it, and but it's like at the time. Neither the Russians nor the Americans were too keen about having this get out, that they came that close.
Oh, God almighty.
Because it was only, for the most part, it was only like 4 or 5 months later that Reagan really got the magnitude of how close they came. I mean, it's right up there with the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I was going to say, but we all knew about that.
Yes.
Oh, and yeah, okay.
But, yeah.
Got to get a break in here.
Okay, cool.
Good God, we almost died, and we didn't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There's other episodes like that.
Oy, ignorance is bliss. Goodbye. We'll be back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Happy New Year from the all-new BergBargains.com. Log on today for the best exclusive deals from your favorite local restaurants, bars, and shows. Sign up for the weekly email update for your chance to win a $100 gift card from the Swigley Spa. The all-new BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Welcome to Move Time Radio, presented by the Arthritis Foundation. And we're smack dab in the middle of our dance-a-thon to fight arthritis pain. Me, I've been grooving for 10 hours straight, baby, but I'm a boogie machine. See, movement is just one of the ways to help fight osteoarthritis pain. Another is weight loss. You get rid of just 1 pound. That's 4 pounds of pressure off each knee. For more information on managing pain, visit fightarthritispain.org. Then meet me on the dance floor. This message brought to you by the Arthritis Foundation and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, God, it's awful sitting here next to this history professor who knows all these horrible things that none of us have been told.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You said this wasn't the only time in our lifetimes, and that
there was
you're going to tell me another one now about the Chinese and the
Russians, yes.
But it just, in 69.
Yes.
Here's the weird thing. Since then, how many other nations have nuclear weaponry? In 69... Did they all have them already?
No.
No, India didn't. Pakistan didn't.
There was a small club. You may actually remember this Tom Lehrer's song.
Yes. It's a song.
About who's got the bomb. That's the extent to which I know who had the bomb.
Who had the bomb?
Yes, it's like who was on that list that Tom Lehrer was singing about.
But you were saying so. Okay, so it's in '69. The Russians and the Chinese came frighteningly close to a nuclear holocaust, and you said in the U.S. was what, playing a role?
Oh, and a very important role too. It was throughout the '60s. Mao Zedong had been really hard on Brezhnev and his Soviet counterparts for being too accommodationist or not being confrontational enough. It was just, and it began manifesting, the tensions between the leaderships began manifesting itself in border disputes in Manchuria. There was some leftover stuff from World War II, and the Chinese army and the Russian army, beginning in, I think, around 64, 65, they began having a lot of back and forth along that border. And the relations went really south in the late 60s, such that by 68, 69, both sides were preparing for war. I actually I had a student of mine who was kind of older than your average student, who was a Chinese student, and he vividly remembered all of this from 68, 69. That on their side they were preparing. They were going to go to war with the Soviet Union. The Soviets were preparing. But the story that is so interesting is that Nixon won the 68 elections. He comes in January of 69. And later in the year, it was, I believe, in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C., that one of the Soviet diplomats goes to one of the Nixon higher-ups in I can't remember if it's in the National Security or Diplomatic Corps. I can't remember now. But when it goes to him, and then they meet in DuPont Circle at some cafe or something like that, and the Soviet person begins to unfold this story about what the Soviets, they had decided what they wanted to do was do tactical nuclear weapons against the Chinese army in Manchuria. And it's like, yep, that's what we want to do. That would be okay with you, wouldn't it? And this is like one of those moments, and I love when you can kind of take the measure of a president. It's like there are moments when they have to get it right. Okay, like Kennedy with the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Nixon, when it kind of did the little circle around of Nixon and his advisors, it comes back, and Nixon's communication to the Soviets was,
"Go ahead."
No.
He
said, under no circumstances will I or the American people stand by and allow you to nuke the Chinese army. It says it's not going to happen.
Which was saying what? If you do that, we'll nuke you?
Well, it would be that we would oppose you in all kinds of ways, and we're not going to say which ways, but we may even end up supporting China against you, and that there is simply no way that would be tolerated. Now, the Soviets were completely taken aback by this because, of course, Mao had made the United States the big, bad, capitalist, country, and but no, Nixon said absolutely not, and the Soviets decided not to. Well, then 6 months or a year later, it goes through the Chinese intelligence community that it gets back to Mao.
That Nixon said no. Yeah,
and Mao's response is, what the hell am I even pretending that somehow the Soviet Union is our great communist ally and that the United States is the great capitalist enemy? What the hell am I thinking? And he began the initiatives that led to the opening up of China.
But meanwhile, he's warring with the United States in Vietnam.
Indirectly,
no?
but but it's the kind of thing that in terms of direct state-to-state relations, this is all part of the Cold War. Remember, that was just standard kind of ways in which both sides managed the Cold War. It was fine if you could do all kinds of things through indirect third world kind of countries, but in terms of direct state-to-state, it's like Mao decided that he wasn't even going to be pretending to have the Russians be somehow his great
considered
communist
family or something.
Yeah. So there again, it's like if the Soviet Union had nuked the Chinese army, it would be a different world now. It would have been a different world in '69, and we would be living in a different world now. And because who can say how that would have played out?
Oh, my God. So that's something Nixon did right.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that when I have my conversations with my students, one of the things I tell them is when you look at presidents, that's the kind of that there are moments, and some presidents never have them. But some presidents do have moments where they make decisions, and they have to get those decisions right.
And they don't always.
No, I think with Bush and Iraq,
obviously.
Wrong.
But you know what? and back to Gates again.
Yeah.
He did, in a word, when asked what he thought, if he were an adjective to describe Obama, and I don't know if it was in an interview or something, he said, courageous.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons he said it, he was blown away by Obama's cool in regard to calling the strike on bin Laden.
If it had been Bill Gates or Hillary Clinton, it wouldn't have happened. They would have given it the red light.
So it was interesting. With all the stuff he didn't agree. One word to describe Barack Obama and Gates says courageous.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And I agree.
Well,
yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
I have a guest from the Forum for Economic Development later this week that I wanted to
plug.
I wanted to briefly mention.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that it was somebody I believe. Actually, I don't know. We were talking about a different organization, but the Forum for Economic Development has a speaker coming in this Friday evening, and his name is Edward McClellan, and he has this wonderful new book out called Nothing But Blue Skies, and it's about the decline of industrial cities, the Rust Belt cities, of which Pittsburgh is one. And we're hosting a talk and a book signing Friday evening at 5 at the Homestead Library. And it's the kind of thing that this guy not only is he talking about the kind of economic development issues that Pittsburgh needs to be thinking about, he also was the author of a book called Young Barack Obama about Obama's years as a Chicago politician. And to me, that is just an interesting story in and of itself. That he's done some other books too, but it would really for anybody who has an interest like in Pittsburgh or what the future of the city, or has an interest in President Obama and his past,
this is a guy who knows a lot about that stuff.
Yeah,
so
and he cares. He really cares. Ted McClellan really cares about these issues, and has some really interesting ideas about looking ahead about what we can do about it.
The rebirth of these cities?
Manufacturing. How to
reintroduce manufacturing.
Reintroducing manufacturing and to dealing with not just the economic issues, but the human costs. Because all of these cities, and Pittsburgh is one of them, the story of the decline of industry, manufacturing, it isn't just an economic story. Oh. It's a human story.
When I first came here and when I was hired, my first days on the job were the beginnings of 1981. And that is when, I got to tell you, I was sent on one story after another, human interest stories. And what was happening?
Yes.
Up and down
Duquesne.
These rivers, and the impact on people's lives. I remember just being, I'd never seen such a wrenching social upheaval in my life. Mm-hmm. And in fact, in the next decade or something, in that first 10 years here, Pittsburgh's population was cut in half.
Yes.
I mean, that much of a migration out of desperate people.
Yes. And when you think about what we started today's show with, a conversation about the poverty of the African American community in this city, it's like people forget that it wasn't.
The African Americans had just gotten a toehold in the manufacturing.
They had just gotten in the 70s. Yeah, through
access to those good jobs in the mills,
manufacturing jobs, and
they were the first thrown out the door.
Yes,
last hired, first fired.
They didn't get into the training programs. They were denied seniority. They were denied leadership. And so it's like they're the first ones that get out. And in most economists, I would say, look at the African American community in Pittsburgh now and say, well, why is it that they're why is it so hard for them right now? It starts with the fact that
they've never had they haven't had a shot. Every time they have a shot, the rug gets pulled out from under them.
Yeah. And the eds and meds economy that's coming along now.
That's not going to help them.
It's not nearly enough. not nearly enough.
No, because the jobs that's throwing out are, like these awful service jobs that don't pay a living wage.
Yeah. No. So come and hear Ted talk about this Friday evening at the Homestead Library, 5:00.
5:00, Homestead Library. Be there, be square.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I know you had a lot of other things that you were wanting to talk about, but we've only got 2 minutes left.
The one that I'm so inspired about, it's something I post a lot on my blog.
Oh, here he goes. He's such a dog lover.
Well, I am, but there's the For Paws. The For Paws animal rescue organization in Los Angeles. I think it was in 2010 or 2011 that it was basically this couple, Eldad and Audrey Hagar, and this guy has a real gift with dogs.
He's like a dog whisperer.
Yep, with stray dogs, that he has the ability to go out in dumps, tunnels, you name it, wherever it is, and to find these sometimes nasty, sometimes
they're
terrified animals, and on the one hand, to get a leash around their necks as he's filming himself.
Pretty cool.
And, it's really remarkable when you actually keep that in mind, that he's doing this with one hand. He's basically capturing them with one hand.
I have to tell you, I know you've posted a lot of these things. You cannot, these animals are in such horrific condition when he does it. And then they're rehabilitated.
That's
and
it.
It's
reintroduced to families and foster. But the key piece, and this is the piece I want to make, is why I'm so inspired by them, is the model. It's one of the things, most of the people who go out and get stray dogs, like the dog pound, it's like they get them, there's no happy ending for these animals.
No.
And the thing about his organization is that there's almost always happy endings, because by filming himself and putting it online, what happens is he has like 500,000 followers. And he just says, okay, we just got this dog that you see in this film.
And so these animals are immediately placed?
No, it's what happens is it's like, well, this dog needs this this operation.
Oh, okay.
It needs this dental work. It needs these shots.
People just give money.
And the money pours in.
Well, why doesn't he have more people doing the rescuing?
Because it's dangerous. And it's really, that's what, like, his special gift is that he can.
Well, he could at least get somebody to film him, so he's not.
Well, that's the chatter in his organization. But the reason I brought this up is because he's created what I call a virtuous circle, where he has this tragic stories that he has to tell, and what makes them happy ending possible is the money that's generated by the filming, such that it's like, he knows he can cure these dogs, he knows he can foster them, and he knows he can put them in good homes because he has the money created by the films. And so it's like, it's a model for how other things might be dealt with.
Instead of dogs, people?
I think. That's when I talk about this virtuous circle, that I have a sense it's like, that's why people need to check out what he's doing. If you go to the Hope for Paws website, there's like 150, 200 video clips.
Of him doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope for Paws. PAWS. Obviously.
Yep. .org.
You're such a softy. Yeah. Well, no, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
God bless him. Hey, thank you so much. We are out of time.
Yes.
But boy, did I learn a lot today.
Very great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor Day. He's going to join us once a month and make us all a lot smarter. Okay?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, tomorrow, I guess just me, because Mr. Sokolowski is getting better after a medical procedure. And he should be joining us next week. Okay? Stay warm. Isn't it great we didn't say boo about how cold it was, did we?
Nope.
We did not.
Nope.
We're so tough.
It's 0 outside.
Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.